So I was out of town for a few days, and I wasn't able to make a video on this the day that it happened, which I'm very upset about because I'm probably not going to get near as many views as I would have. But I did watch the day that it dropped, the minute that it dropped, the Mario Kart World 15-minute Direct. And let me tell you, sports fans, wow, I was blown away by just how uninteresting it was. Not the game itself. I'd say the game itself actually looks pretty dang interesting. But just the Direct, man. I was so excited for this Direct. So excited. I am very much looking forward to Mario Kart World. I very much am open to justifying the price. I know big talk, big words, but I'm very open to seeing the price and seeing the game, and maybe it's worth it. I think so far we're getting there. Just need to do that one extra little push, and I was waiting for it. Maybe it was going to be new characters, or some more returning old characters. Maybe it was the announcement that there was going to be DLC, but it was going to be free DLC, or just some content updates in the future. Maybe it was going to have a story mode or a mission mode like Diddy Kong Racing or Mario Kart DS. And I opened up the Direct. I was so excited, just analyzing the backgrounds for any new tracks, any new racers, Maybe I'll get to see, the Goat King Babam, or maybe Funky Kong's in the back, just waiting and waiting. And I waited. And I waited. And I waited, and I just kept waiting. And nothing came. Nothing came. Nothing that really blew me away. It really was just an overview, which is fine. It's fine. But why give it the title Direct? I mean, they were kind of hyping this up as a full presentation. I think back to the days of the Directs that we had for Smash Brothers. When we had, designated Smash Directs. Those were 40 minutes. Those were 30 minutes. They were packed to the brim. There was always new stuff. Brand new world premieres never before seen. And I have here, I don't know if you can hear the paper, but I have written down a bunch of things that I feel, or that I think that are important enough to talk about. And man, I'm still just disappointed. But we'll get to the general Direct stuff later. Let's talk about the specifics. So, first off, I want to talk about a big negative, and that's the character selection screen. It looks atrocious. It looks awful. I think that the character selection screen should look like Mario Kart 8's. I think Mario Kart 8 had a very good selection screen. Asterisks. I think that the way that the character portraits were, the way that they were organized, I think that's fine. I think they need that, but just condense it. In Mario Kart 8, Tanuki Mario, Metal Mario should have been, in an additional menu within Mario, similar to how Link has both the versions. Cat Peach and Pink Cold Peach should have been, for Peach. You see what I'm saying. And this, Mario Kart World, it's like that, but 10 times worse. The characters are on different sections of the screen that you have to scroll through, like you have to swipe through different tabs. That's already bad enough because there's 8 different tabs. That's going to be really annoying to scroll through 8 tabs, trying to find, your character, and then oopsies, it was actually on the second page and you missed it. Time to go all the way back. That's going to be awful. And then all the costumes seem to be in separate character slots. What is that? That's actually just awful. I'm really hoping there is a sort button at the bottom corner. I'm really hoping that you can condense it and make it one big screen with all the characters, and then you can open up the characters and have different costumes for that. I'm really hoping that that's something that they do or add later, because as it is, this looks trash. Honestly, arguably, probably the worst thing about this game so far is just this character selection menu. Nothing on the characters even. The characters look great, but the menu, ooh, Big no no no. So what's some new things? And yeah, I know here's another negative about the direct. There's no new characters, and to an extent, I don't think that in of itself is a bad thing. I think that there are 50 characters. I think that's a great amount of characters. It's already more than 8 Deluxe, and it's already have the most new characters in any game ever for Mario Kart. And I think the characters itself would have been fine, but I really think it would have been smarter for them to keep certain characters hidden from the background in the announcement trailer and then show them off as brand newcomers here. I mean, could you imagine, they use the cow and the Goomba and Nabbit to, really show that, there's no limits to this Mario Kart. And then in the direct, they show the Cheep Cheep and the Pokies and the Swoops and the Rocky Wrenches and then, whatever. I think that would have been a lot cooler. It would have felt like there's a lot more content because, characters like, Cheep Cheep, that's crazy. That's a wild character choice. But it's kind of old news now because we've known about it for weeks. And then here we have this brand new, insane direct. We're looking for brand new things, new characters. That's like the first thing they should have shown. And when they did talk about characters, they talked about Mario and Luigi and Peach and Yoshi and Bowser. It's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then the new characters, and they showed Goomba. And then they showed Cow. And then I think they showed one more, but I forget what it was. And it's like, yeah, that is really cool. I'm really glad they're here. But we already know about that. That's not new information. And directs are supposed to be new information. You wanted to talk about old stuff, make an overview. But this is a new thing. But, let me set up. Let's continue. The character unlocks and costume unlocks are pretty interesting. Costume unlocks you unlock via regional food. I think that's pretty cool. I'm a big fan of that. You drive through, you find a burger and you eat it, and you turn into a country kid because America loves the burgers. You find some sushi and you put on a kimono. That's pretty cool. I think that's an interesting way of adding costumes. And if there's a lot of costumes, I think that's a good idea. I think that's cool. The character unlocks a little bit different though. I'm not exactly super sure on this one. I'm not sure about the main cast, but for the characters that are like just kind of generic enemies, you seem to unlock them through Kamek's item. Kamek turns all the racers into a random enemy, and then they become unlockable. I don't know if this is the only way to unlock characters. I hope not, because I don't know if I like that. I was kind of hoping that they would tie into maybe not a story mode, but like some more missions where, you go find a Goomba just kind of chilling in the plains, and he's like, I bet I could beat you in the game. And then you have a race and you beat him in a race, and he's like, okay, I'll join you, and then he joins you. Or, maybe you go to the Waterlands and there's a Cheep Cheep, and he says, if you can collect 100 coins in 2 minutes, I'll join your squad. And that's how you unlock characters. I was hoping it was something like that. If it's just kind of like random from an item that you get in an item box, that would be really lame. And I hope that that's not the only way to unlock characters. But I suppose it is what it is. They talked about modes, versus mode, time trials, battle mode. You can have standard Grand Prix if you don't want to do the traveling back and forth. That's good. I'm glad to see all the modes returning. Big time trial fan. Versus mode, picking which races you want. Normal mode. I'm glad that they have a normal mode where you can just skip the traveling aspect. You can just do the races individually. That's good. For the people that want that classic Mario Kart. That's good. Nothing too crazy about that. Here's an interesting thing that they showed off that I saw in a menu, and it is, in Mario Kart 8 you had the auto accelerate, so you didn't have to hold down the button, but I don't think it was as fast as if you did it manually. And then you had the auto steer, or the smart steering, so that way you could not drive off of courses or of edges, but you could not get as much drift. And here's the new one is auto item use. I don't know how they factor that in, because items are pretty strategic, at least the way that I use them. I use them pretty strategically, so I can't imagine the computer using it for me would be how it would be best. But it also makes you wonder, if you just turn on auto use item, smart steering, and auto accelerate, can you just like set the controller down and then like go get a snack or something? Me and my friends joked about that with 8 Deluxe. Like you would literally, the only thing that you had to do manually was use items, and now you can have the computer use the items for you. So I mean, it's a little interesting. Not something I would ever want to use. I'm just hoping that they're off by default. It was incredibly, incredibly frustrating to be playing Mario Kart 8 with friends. You get it all set up, and then you have to pause the game and turn off auto steering, but someone accidentally pressed the thing twice and it turned back on, so we got to do it all over again, and it took 5 minutes just to turn off the freaking smart steering when no one needed it in the first place. Have it off by default, and you have to turn it on instead of the other way around. What else we got here? Costumes are based on locations. That's pretty cool. I think I already talked about that briefly, but you find cowboy-related costumes in that Wild West Yoshi one. You find, space costumes probably on the Rainbow Road track, etc. Pretty cool. I think I talked about that already. Some new tech. You can do charge jumps, which get you like the trick boost, just kind of on a straightaway if you charge it up. Okay, that's pretty cool. Give something to do on straightaways. Which kind of like eliminates the need for snaking, unless snaking is like statistically better. You can kind of jump on walls. Like to get onto walls, you have to jump on the wall, which is cool. So you don't automatically go on the wall like in 8 Deluxe with the anti-gravity. You have to purposefully jump onto it. So you can not do that if you don't want to. Same with grinding. You have to jump onto the rail. It looks like it's not an automatic thing, which I'm kind of glad for. Grinding looks interesting. And then you have to rewind. That's kind of weird. I don't know if that would ever be useful, and also why. I don't really think that's necessary. Half of the Mario Kart thing is you mess up, you gotta recover, and if you can't recover, well then boo-hoo, do better next time. So the idea that you can just kind of like redo it, even if like the other racers can still pass you, but if you're in first place and you have a big lead, what does it really matter? But then at that point, it doesn't matter anyway because you can just recover naturally. I don't really get the need for a rewind feature, but I guess if it's an option and you don't have to do it, I guess it doesn't really matter. I just hope it's on a button that you wouldn't like press by accident. That would be awful. Like you accidentally go back 3 places because you pressed a button you didn't mean to. And then you have the big thing. It's not a mission mode, but it's kind of like the free roam and stuff to do. You go collect coins. I noticed that when one of the characters, I think Nabbit was like, he found a coin and he clicked it up and it said, "You got a Peach coin," and it had a picture of Peach, like it had Peach's face on it. That's interesting. I wonder if different coins like have different characters, and then that does something. I don't know what that could mean, because I imagine Peach would be your starter character, so it's not like an unlockable. So I wonder what that's supposed to be about, but whatever. You have P switches, and you have question mark tiles, and just different things to do, and that's good. I'm glad that they have something to do in free roam besides just go around. The only thing that I worry is that it won't have any rewards. I kind of hope that in a way they do it like a weird comparison, but like Spider-Man PS4. Spider-Man PS4, you open the map and it had New York split into different districts, and it had a list of what to do and where to do it. You would open up and you would see, okay, there's 5 Fisk locations, 5 Demon locations, 5 Sable locations. I hope that in Mario Kart in some way you can open up a map and you see, okay, I'm in the Iceland, there's 5 P switches, there's 3 question mark tiles, and there's 10 character coins. I'll go find them. And so like it tells you, how much you have left to do with each individual task. And so you're not just like blindly, roaming around hoping you stumble upon one. And if you miss just one, you spend 10 hours trying to find it. I hope they kind of streamline it a little bit. And that what makes it for some fun speedrunning. But that's really it. They had some tracks, but I'm not going to talk about the tracks because, they're good tracks. They look cool, but that's Mario Kart for you. I want to kind of talk a little bit more, not super long, but a little bit more about just the just the nature of this direct. I kind of talked about it a little bit in the beginning, but like, I don't. It was very disappointing. I remember, that they talk about online at the end, and I mean, it's online. I don't really have much to say about that, but they talk about the online, and I remember getting to it, and then I saw, the like, oh, you can get Mario Kart as a bundle on Switch, and I was like, okay, this is it. What was the point? There wasn't really a point to that, and I'm glad that most of the internet agrees with that, because I felt really bummed. I've been really looking forward to this. Bill Trinan was saying, this will justify the $80 Switch price. You're gonna be blown away. And I was like, okay, there's something. They're gonna bring everyone back from Mario Kart history. They're gonna, the billion tracks. There's a story mode and there's bosses, and it also gives you a foot massage while you play. And I'm like, okay, this is gonna be fire. This is gonna be awesome. This is gonna be the biggest, bestest Mario Kart, and it is not that much different from any other Mario Kart. I mean, it's hard for me to say, because like what was shown was really cool, and I think that if all of this was new information, it would be phenomenal. But it wasn't new information. We knew nearly all of that stuff already. The stuff that I just listed, could have been condensed into a 3-minute segment. They briefly talk about each and just put in the normal direct. I mean, the Mario Kart reveal was already about 10 minutes between the first reveal and then the kind of the showcase. They could have just added 2 more minutes onto it. And, they could have said like, oh, you also unlock costumes via food in different locations, and that's one of the 5 points I talked about condensed into 1 sentence. We added a new feature where you can automatically use items. The character select screen is fucking disgusting. Like, they could have done stuff like that, but the idea for a full-blown direct, unnecessary, pointless, very disappointing. I'm still hoping beyond copium that there's going to be something they're hiding. Even at the very least, just 10 more characters. That's kind of what I personally want the most, is just more characters. Simply because, more characters are always fun. Characters they've already shown are really cool, but I'm hoping that they bring back some classics. Bring back the Koopalings, the Kongs, the King Babam, Koopa Paratroopa, I don't know, and Poochie, and there you go. That's your roster. That'd be cool. And I was just waiting for just one more character. Where's Petey Piranha? Where's Petey? I'm not the biggest Petey fan, but he's a mainstay in Mario Kart, in my opinion. Where is he? He's not there. Is he going to be here? I don't know. Is anyone else coming? I don't know. They haven't said this is all the characters we're going to show. I kind of hope that they either say that or they show more characters. Again, with Smash Brothers, I know it's different because that's a fighting game and you kind of have to... The characters are the most important part. Mario Kart characters are not the most important part, but they are to me. Smash Brothers, they said, this is the final character we are showing off. There will be no more reveals after this for the base game. And then they showed off Canon and Cineroar, and I was like, okay, wow, that's the last characters. I kind of hope that they make like a statement, or not a statement, but like, they kind of say, there are no more characters, or, there are hidden characters in the game, but we're not telling you what they are. Like, that'd be cool. Like, then that'd be kind of like a fun little thing to find, like, oh, who's in the game? Oh, is it gonna be Rob? Is he back? Or are they going to leave him stuck as a bike? Nintendo, oh my goodness gracious, you did not leave my boy stuck as a bike!